Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your splendid springtime hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and this is a show where we review all the anime series from the previous season we did and didn't watch start to finish. Spring has finally arrived, but man has it been a long winter. I love winter, it's my favorite season, but I would be lying if I didn't say I didn't appreciate the few warm days we've had in the past week.
I am on the opposite end of the spectrum where I can't stand... Get that snow shit out of here, man.
Well, you get too much snow. I don't get basically no snow at all, which makes me very sad.
That's like a mutual friend of ours. No matter how much snow, it could be 4 feet in one day. It's not enough.
Yes.
Of course, he doesn't have to deal with it because he lives in an apartment building.
I mean, I kind of do too. But... we also don't get snow, so there's that.
Grrr.
I wish we had more. Anyway, for this show, springtime means it's time to dish out our first review from the cold season in today's episode, and thus we'll venture into world of magic and monsters to talk about the hit show Ancient Magus Bride. But first, we of course have to take a quick look at all the spicy spring premieres that we could get a hold of, and we do that momentarily in our sneak peek. Alright, welcome to the sneak peek. As usual, we discuss our drops, or certain shows that we will drop first, and I think I'm the only one who has already decided on what he's not gonna watch. After that, we head over to the shows we might actually stick with, and after that we give our must-watch candidates their due diligence. So let's start out right here and go with Last Hope, or Jushinki Pandora. I don't know, Pandora? Anyway.
I was operating under the assumption that they meant Pandora as in like Pandora's box, but
yeah,
you know.
It makes sense, and if you consider what the show is about. Anyway, so this is set in a kind of post-apocalyptic future where after a science accident, cybernetic beasts called Brai roam the Earth, who have become the dominant species since they constantly evolve. So the humans fight the Brai with special mechs called Move or something. I don't know how it's pronounced. MOEV. I forgot what that's the abbreviation for. Anyway, and I guess the gimmick is that the mechs can evolve too, just like the Brai. Or at least that's what the show is hinting at. I don't know if that's a singular evolution and it's just, hey, now it's a mech with legs and no car anymore, and that's it. Or if, there's going to be more to that. But yeah, the guy who comes up with those evolving mechs called Leon seems to also be involved, or have been involved in the incident that caused a Brai menace. So yeah, just, from the setup alone, this could be kind of cool, but from what I've garnered from the first episode, it all felt very generic to me. The characters are super bland, the mech designs are not that interesting, and the CG is not really bad, but also not really good either. I don't know, this whole show gave me a giant blah feeling. I don't know. Did you watch it, John?
No, I didn't, and that's unfortunate because I was interested in this show because, it's a satellite show and it's coming out of the head of Shoji Kawamori. Yeah. So that kind of grabbed my interest. But if what you're saying is true...
I mean, first episode, right? It can go somewhere interesting always, but it's just like, yeah, there's so much other stuff that, has me much more interested. And this was just, if I hear exceptionally good things about it later, when it has run its course for a while, and maybe I'll check it out again, but for now it's just like, seen that. Don't need that.
I mean, the problem with trying to watch this show is, number one, it was banished to a phrase that I have now coined as Netflix purgatory. You all can feel free to use that.
Copyright by John Marks.
Yes. Pay me royalties. What? And we Anime Brain Freeze do not openly condone piracy. We say, try and find a legal route to watch your shows before you decide to yar-har the seas of the internets. Mm-hmm. But fan subs for this show seem to be close to non-existent. I mean, apparently the first episode was subbed, and I think there are some for the second episode, but it seems like it's going to be difficult to be able to watch. So
yeah. So whenever that gets released from its streaming prison, I don't know if that setup maybe sounds interesting. If you're into sci-fi stuff like that, maybe check it out. I don't know. I wasn't too enticed by it or captivated by it. Next surefire drop, Cutie Honey Universe. So it's a good year for Good Night Guy fans. We've had a new Mazinger movie recently, and of course Devilman Crybaby, and now we get a new Cutie Honey series as well. This seems like a perfectly fine show. I like the designs a lot. They are a nice mix of modern and 70s aesthetics. I'm not very familiar with the franchise. I have only watched a few episodes of Cutie Honey Flash when it aired on TV over here. And judging from the first episode, you don't really need to know that much. The characters and story are pretty self-explanatory. Cutie Honey is an android girl that can transform into many different personas and fights the evil Panther Claw organization that killed her father. That's about the only thing you probably should know before you go into this show. And from there, it's pretty standard tokusatsu slash magical girl stuff. Bit more violent maybe and sexy, but yeah. I don't know if they will do anything more with the setup. Seems like they're trying to make things between Sister Jill, the leader of Panther Claw, and Cutie Honey a bit more personal. But who can say? It's a raw, raunchy, magical girl slash tokusatsu show, like I said, with lots of naked flesh, which is all fine and good, but I'm not invested in this franchise, and there's, like I said, again, so much other stuff to watch, and this just seems to be made more with the actual fans in mind. Like I said, you don't really need to know that much to understand what's going on, but, there are a lot of characters that are not introduced and just, thrown in your face, and it feels like you should be familiar with them.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not.
I watched this as well. I mean, I have like a cursory knowledge of Cutie Honey, so I was like, oh, hey, there's a new one. Guess I'll check it out. And you're right. It just sort of is like, do you know this? Go, go, go. It just throws everything at you. And I'm like, slow down. Just hold on. And I get that it came out of the head of Go Nagai and, the pedigree of his work. So I don't know if I'm sold on it. Obviously, you're not. I might give it one more, but I don't know if I'll stick with it either.
All right. My last surefire drop is Devil's Line. So this is a show about modern-day vampires called Oni hiding in plain sight, and about a police force hunting those of them who attack humans to incarcerate them, or kill them if they don't comply. And to be able to actually apprehend those superpowered people, the special police force is, of course, also made up of vampires. The thing that made me drop the show is the look. Simple as that. The animation is not necessarily bad, but weirdly stiff. And the character designs are bland-faced McUltra bland. I just didn't like looking at that show. And the story setup also didn't seem to be something other shows like, for example, Tokyo Ghoul, haven't done more interestingly already, just from, judging from the first episode. So that's pretty much my 2 cents on that. And I think I'm not going to watch that any further. I just was sitting watching the first episode like, those were the noises coming out of my mouth. And I think that's...
I think I saw something about this show too, and I was just sort of like, all right.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's what I came away from the show with. All right. Okay, so that out of the way, let's talk about the shows that we might actually stick with. I mean, John already said that he might check out a few more episodes of Cutie Honey. But what is another show that you are interested in and might stick with?
I mean, I have a couple shows that I'm still not sure about, so maybe we could just run the gamut on those real quick. The first is Caligula.
Yeah, I've also checked that out.
Which is based on a game of the same name. I think it was localized as the Caligula Effect. basically it's all about this virtual idol named Mew. John's ringing the idol bell already. Mew performs user-inputted songs and gains self-awareness through exposure to users' bitter feelings and dissatisfaction towards reality. And wanting to save humanity, which she believes is continuously suffering, she lures people into a virtual reality world called Mobius with her songs. She then imprisons them in Mobius, thinking they'll be free from the suffering of reality and that all their wishes will come true. And 9 members of the quote-unquote Going Home Club, a club that was formed because the characters want to escape from Mobius and go home, try to find a way out. This show's first episode does not establish its premise at all.
Yeah, that's the thing that actually got me kind of hooked, because I didn't know anything about it. Now I know the whole plot. All right.
I knew a little bit about it from reading about the game, so I was like, oh, I don't really have much intent on checking out the game. Conversely, there's another show you're probably going to be talking about where I'm not going to check out the show because the game is something I still want to play.
Yeah.
But so I was like, I'll check this out. And I walked away from the first episode sort of like, what?
Yeah, I did too. I mean, now everything makes sense that you read a summary that you found in there somewhere. I mean, I didn't look up anything for pretty much for the shows, almost anything for the shows that I checked out for the sneak peek. But yeah, I mean, the first episode was like, okay, what is going on? I mean, there is like this main character, Ritsu, and he lives a normal, uneventful life, but can't shake the feeling that something's off. Like there are these memory fragments occasionally bubbling to the surface that he can't make sense of, and everything feels very samey about his days, like kind of Groundhog Day-ish.
Yeah, I sort of got that feeling at first, and I was like, this isn't what this is about, is it? And it's not.
No, it's like, from what you were describing, it feels like this is more of a Matrix kind of situation where they're like, trapped in a computer or whatever, virtual reality thing. And, they need to escape from this. Also getting superpowers, maybe, judging from the opening. I don't know. I mean, the setup is interesting enough. The question is what they do with that. Like, the atmosphere in the first episode was pretty cool. I was, it's just a big maybe for me, it was a big maybe just in terms of being a giant mystery box from the first episode. Like I said, I didn't know anything about the story. But now I'm wondering, is this gonna be like a Danganronpa thing? Are they gonna try to break out and, one by one each of them dies or something like that? Or what is actually gonna happen? Like, I mean, they're not gonna fight Mew in every episode, right? I mean,
I don't know much about the game other than the basic setup. So, I mean, I guess there are these like other virtual idols that sort of side with Mew. And I mean, the neat thing with that is they're all like big name voice actors. They're like, hey, look at how star-studded our cast is. And that's probably the hook.
All right.
So I don't know.
I'm for now I'm interested. I'm gonna stick with it for at least maybe 1 or 2 more episodes and see where it goes. But yeah, it's a maybe.
The other show I'm kind of uncertain on. I'm gonna be the one to bring it up. Sword Art Online Alternative Gun Gale Online.
Yeah.
Because number one, the show's name is too long. I'm just going to throw that out there.
You could just call it Sawa. Sawa, GGO.
All right. So, SAO Alternative comes out of the head of the guy who done wrote Kino's Journey. So, that's his thing. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that.
No.
Okay, so the show is about this girl. I'm going to butcher this name awfully. Karen Kohurimaki. She's like a super tall, like 6 foot tall college student, and being that tall is sort of, I guess it's an irregularity for Japanese people. As far as genetics go, I think Japanese people skew more towards the shorter end. Like that's just science. So
I guess especially for a woman then.
Yes. and she is, very insecure about her height. And I want to say that I know from personal experience that this is very real, because I went to high school with a girl who was very tall, and she had the same sort of issues about that.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
okay, all right, we're rooted in some level of reality with that. Karen is bad at dealing with people in the real world. Who isn't?
Mm-hmm.
And she enters the world of Gale Online with her avatar Len, who is a short little chibi squat girl, and she wears all pink because, when you're playing a tactical shooter, you want to stand out as much as possible.
I thought that was the PUBG plan to success.
Oh man, I got a game. I got several games for you. One's called PUBG, one's called Fortnite, one's called Radical Heights.
I'm going to play all of them.
Oh, yeah. Why haven't you played Cliffy B's new game yet? Because he took Lawbreakers and threw it out the fucking window to make Radical Heights.
In the course of 3 months or something.
Basically. So anyway.
That's not even a lie. Anyway, off that tangent.
Len meets this beautiful female player who goes by the name Pito Hui.
Mm-hmm.
They hit it off, but in one day, Pito Hui pressures her into participating in Squad Jam, which is basically Battle Royale, pushing the hot buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a variation on Gale's Bullet of Bullets tournament, which if you watched SAO 2, you probably already know about. The show...
Basically, yeah. I would go further than that, but please continue.
I mean, it doesn't seem horribly offensive, but when Karen's avatar is just zipping all over the place, and suddenly she's like this MLG pro player 3 months into playing the game, it's like... And she hangs out with her other tactical friend. Yeah, don't you love that? Don't you love that? Don't you love that? And they take out a squadron of real, actual pros during the first episode. It sure is sword art.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what you thought about it?
So, to be honest, the first episode kind of put me to sleep. Genuinely, my eyes were falling shut. This show seems to be made mainly for the moe and gun/military fetish crowd, which I'm not a part of. I mean, she fucking names her P90 P-chan. You gotta be fucking shitting me.
Yep, she does.
So... I mean, I liked the Gale chapter in actual Sword Art Online.
Because I came around on that too. So
yeah, it had an interesting setup with that gun and the real life deaths and everything. But so far, this spin-off hasn't given me anything to care about. So chances of a drop are pretty high here. Just there was nothing in that first. I've only watched the first episode so far, but there was nothing in there that spoke to me or looked interesting to me, sounded interesting to me, nothing. And I guess
I was just interested in checking out because it's being handled by a different studio. It's being handled by 3 Hertz instead of A1. So
it looks rather good.
It does for now. The second episode I watched earlier, it was, I guess, slightly better. I also liked it better when they introduced her character as wearing the green fatigues before she was like, hey, I want to color them pink. But I also want to step back from that and say, as someone who's played an MMO where you can do goofy glamours like that, all right, okay. My character in FF14 looks like a fucking idol, so
well,
I guess that's fine. But it's not practical, but it's fine.
I mean, that's not the show's biggest problem, at least from my point of view. It's just there's...
It's still sort of, I look at it and I'm like,
I mean, they were, that too, but they were also talking about, we're gonna surround them and this tactical stuff, and let's talk a bit more about what guns these guys use. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. What the fuck? Show me something interesting. That didn't happen. So I don't know.
Maybe how fast I am.
Yeah, maybe I'll check out the second episode, but yeah, we'll see. Big maybe.
Yeah. So, I think we got the stuff that we're sort of on the fence about out of the way. What do you got for us?
I still got more stuff that I'm on the fence about.
Oh, excuse me. Go on.
So, I mentioned earlier, in my 2 cents on Devil's Line, that some shows already did more interesting stuff with that setup, and said one of them was Tokyo Ghoul. So, guess what? We have a new season of Tokyo Ghoul this season.
Oh, yeah.
This is a sequel to the first anime adaptation of that, and as the title already states, it's about creatures called ghouls, who are basically this mix of vampires and zombies, kinda, who have to consume human flesh to survive. So this is set 2 years after the events of the first show, which I liked, except for the ending. So I wonder if this season can remedy some of the bad aftertaste. Get it? I was left with when finishing the first one. But while I was watching the first episode of this, I noticed that I barely remember anything from the second half of that first show.
Oops.
So if I want to stick with this one, I'd have to go back and rewatch the first season, and I'm not sure I'll do that. We'll see. That's also a big maybe. Like I like the first season, or I remember liking most of it, but yeah. We'll see. For now, another maybe.
It's never something I really got interested in or checked out, but I know I have another friend who's super into Tokyo Ghoul, so, you know. I honestly thought this was like the third season for some reason.
Maybe it is the third, and they split up the first season too, and one was... I don't remember. I don't think I've missed one.
I mean, I only say that because I haven't, keeping tabs on it.
I mean, maybe there was like 1 season break between the 2 seasons of Tokyo Ghoul, or the 2 cores. I don't remember. I remember there being like 26 episodes or something.
Right, I think one of them was called like Route A or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the second season. True.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Okay. But I feel that those two were pretty close together, so...
Fair enough.
Anyway, big maybe. We'll see what I do with that. The next maybe is a show called Dances with Dragons. This seems to be set in a fantasy version of our modern day world, maybe. I don't know, maybe it's a different planet. I'm not sure. Where certain people can wield a form of magic/technology called Jushiki. The 2 main protagonists are part of a special force using these powers to fight dragons. And there also seems to be some kind of political conspiracy brewing in the background, in the upper echelons of the society, and someone who is seeking out and killing other Jushiki users. This seems like a pretty solid action show. There's a nice fight against the dragon in the first episode that looked cool, and I like the main characters. They're like this kind of buddy cop duo that doesn't really get along that well, and I don't know. They're all right. So I can't say if it will go anywhere interesting yet, but I think I'll stick around for a couple more episodes to find out.
Well, I hope it's better than the last time I thought we had a buddy cop show. Hey, Apocrypha.
Hey, different opinion on that one, but you're right. That show would have been better if those 2 were the main characters. Anyway, Dances with Dragons, like I said, looks like a solid action show. We'll see if it stays that way, and if it does anything more interesting with its premise. The last maybe on my list is Legend of the Galactic Heroes, the Neue These. So this is a new anime adaptation of a popular novel series from the 80s that already had a long-running OVA series through the 80s and 90s that ran a whopping 110 episodes.
That's not an OVA at that point.
Still, it says so.
Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Kind of like with Record of Lodoss War. Oh, it's an OVA series. It's like 13 or 14. How long was it?
Well, those were the days of OVAs. Hey,
those were also the days of, because they were direct-to-video, they were higher quality.
Yeah, at least sometimes. But yeah, apparently that old adaptation didn't cover all of the material, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah.
I'm sorry, you say 110 episodes and it doesn't cover all of the material, and I'm just sort of like, what?
I think there are a lot of novels for this for this thing. So I think they ran for 10 years or something. I'm not sure.
Wow.
But yeah, so. Yeah, big military space opera about the giant war between two different empires, the Galactic Empire and the Free Galaxy Alliance. One more autocratic, one more democratic. And the main players on each side seem to be two young masterminds, or tactical masterminds in terms of, of war tactics and everything, called Reinhard von Lohengramm and Yang Wen Li. This is still a maybe because I don't know if the tone of the show can hold my interest for super long. It's very dry, talky science fiction. There's lots of cool space battles between giant fleets of ships, but for now the attractions seem to lie in all the military maneuvering, and I don't know if that will be enough to keep me hooked. But the main characters seem to be cool enough, so maybe I'll stick with it. I don't know. The character development has to go somewhere. If it's just, those two butting heads on the battlefield and, all the sub-generals and stuff maneuvering their fucking spaceships, I'll probably won't stick with that. Especially not for if that new show is going to run as long as the old one.
Oh, no.
Holy shit. Which might very well happen. But we'll see. I mean, there's probably a reason why the novels are so popular. And I assume it's not only among, science fiction military nerds. So we'll see. For now, I'm going to stick with it. But, depending on how it goes, I might also drop it. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, let's head to shows we're probably going to... I mean, that we are pretty sure we're going to stick with. So what's the first one that you got?
First show is... I'm going to ring the rom-com bell just straight away and get it out of the way.
Yay.
It's Otaku ni koi wa Muzukashii, or Love is Hard for Nerds.
I think that's a very highly anticipated show, right? For this
Yes. It was one that really sort of grabbed my interest from the description because, hey, it's not a high school rom-com. Wow! So it's about this girl, Narumi, who... starts a new job in this office in I believe it's in Tokyo, and she's really excited to work there and whatnot. And then she runs across one of her old middle school buddies who she hasn't seen in forever, this guy Hirotaka, and he accidentally outs her as a nerd, which is something that she was trying to keep under wraps.
Understandably so. Everybody hates nerds, right?
Yeah, fucking nerds! But yes, through many sessions of going out and getting drunk off her ass with her friend Hirotaka, she basically reveals to him, yeah, I quit my other job because, I was dating one of the guys there, and he didn't like that I was, a giant fujoshi. Oops.
The struggle is too real.
So she was like, yeah, I had to get out of there and get a different job. And Hirotaka is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, where he's just like a massive game nerd. But the whole outing of her as a nerd is like, he just turns around to Narumi while she's walking with the lady who's basically giving her the orientation, and says, hey, are you going to Summer Comic-Con? Why would you say that? Sort of situation. And it sort of spirals downhill from there, but maybe in a good way, because Hirotaka says to Narumi, if we were going out, you wouldn't have to worry about, hiding who you are. You wouldn't have to worry about, all this baggage that would come with having to keep hidden from your significant other, this and that and the other thing. Also, we could really help each other out at Comic-Con. Deal, we're dating.
All right.
And
that's easy, I guess.
And I like it. It's great. Just from the first episode alone, I think the interactions between the characters is fantastic, and I'm interested in seeing where it's going. I, however, am going to try and temper my expectations because they were like, hey, you know those nerd things that nerds love? Hey, here's a banner for Sayakano. They're totally playing Monster Hunter Double Cross on their not Switches. And I'm sort of like, I don't want this to become another gamer situation, so I'm just going to rein it in. But if it manages to stick to its theming like MMO Junkie did, hey, maybe it could be a pretty good time. So I guess I'll have to wait and find out.
And maybe this time we have to do without an anti-Semitic director.
Yeah, about that
would be nice.
I mean, at least his ass got canned. So
yeah, there's that. Anyway, the next show I think we both are gonna stick with that I got on my list is Lupin III Part 5.
Yes.
I don't know if I mean the previous one had Italian Adventure. I don't know if this one has a subtitle too.
I mean, I know this is at least supposed to be partly set in France. So
yeah. Well, they tried to travel to fucking Düsseldorf at the end of the first episode, so maybe in Germany too. We'll see. That would be interesting. I would be down with that. Anyway, so this is a continuation of the 2015/2017, depending on where you live, Lupin show. What can you say? It's Lupin. It's a shitload of fun. Reviewed the previous season on episode 8 of our show. Man, that feels like yesterday, but it's been almost 2 years already. Can you believe that shit? Anyway,
God, really? Has it been?
Yes.
Holy sh! God damn!
May 2016, man.
Oh my God, we're old, man.
Anyway, we both liked that one. The actual story was a bit whack, especially towards the end.
Yeah, the ending was kind of...
Yeah, but most of the standalone stuff was great. And I expect this one to be on the same level. So right now it's basically Lupin versus the internet in a giant manhunt. So we'll see where that goes. And you don't really need to have seen any previous Lupin outings to jump in and have fun. That's just the way Lupin is structured, which is nice. So if you're in the mood for something fun and lighthearted and adventure and thief shenanigans, check that one out definitely, because Lupin's always good. At least most of the time, yes.
Yeah. I like the ideas of Lupin versus the internet, as well as Lupin the super hacker, and essentially stealing Bitcoin from dark web dealers. Fucking, this is great. I was like not sure, what they were going to do with the show at first, because it was just, oh hey, there's a new Lupin. All right, sure, I'll check it out. And then after the first episode, I was like, I'm so into this. It's great. It's basically the next step, the next logical step for this sort of thing, I feel like.
Yeah, it feels very contemporary. A lot of the Lupin shows feel like they, could play in pretty much any time, kind of. But this one feels like, okay, this is specifically, happening now because, cryptocurrency is on the rise and everything. And, this has all that tech stuff that wasn't that prevalent before in Lupin. At least not that I remember. It's interesting. It's like, this is a new thing they're doing with the show. So
I remember, I forget who said it, but someone saying, the writers obviously understand how the internet works, because when early on, and it's only 2 episodes in, but early on when they introduced the Lupin game, and he basically uses it to his advantage, and then everyone else loses interest in it like that. That's the internet. Everyone moves to the next big thing like in 5 minutes later. That's great. That's excellent.
Feels super real, yes. Very appropriate. Anyway, what is the next thing on your list that is not Lupin?
Hinamatsuri.
Yes, that's also on my list.
Yeah. So
here's a weird one.
One night, a strange object falls on the head of Nita, a member of the Yakuza. Mm-hmm. And inside this case is a strange young girl named Hina. She has tremendous supernatural powers, seems like telekinesis. and Nita finds himself reluctantly taking her in. Her powers may come in handy for his Yakuza business, but he also runs the risk of her using them on him. Not to mention, if she doesn't use her powers, she basically goes berserk and destroys everything around her. And they basically start to form this weird, almost father-daughter relationship, and I love this show. It's only 2 episodes in, and it's fantastic. I love the dynamic between Nita and Hina so goddamn much.
Yeah, I only watched the first episode. It's the same for me. Like I was like, I didn't know anything about that show. I heard it was mostly comedy, but I didn't know anything else. And it's like I had several laugh out loud moments in the first episode, which I didn't see coming. It's just, this is the kind of wacky sense of humor that is very up my alley. And like you said, Nita and Hina are great. And many great moments in that first episode, and stay for the after credits scene for one of the best ones. She's that. Holy shit! So yeah. Right now I'm fine if it stays, just a comedy thing. But there's also a slight chance that it might go interesting places, considering the mystery surrounding Hina's origin and everything, and what she said about people until now having only been using her for their own gain and shit like that. And maybe there are other superpowered users that will come in later into the picture later. So we'll see. But if you're in the mood for funny stuff, this seems to be a good show to check out.
I also got to say that from the first 2 episodes, the show is gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I was looking at the list of studios working on it. Fucking studio feel. It looks like they called in about as many favors as Madhouse did for One Punch Man. So it should be interesting, to say the least.
Yeah. Definitely gonna stick with that one. It's fun times.
Definitely. What you got next?
The next show, you already alluded to this when we were talking about game adaptations. So, the anime adaptation of Persona 5. So, Persona 5, the animation. Persona 5 is the newest entry in popular RPG franchise by the, titular name. It's kind of spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei at first, but now it's gotten more prevalent and bigger than its, father series. I don't know.
Hey, remember when Atlas were trying to sell it off of the name SMT in the States because they weren't sure it would sell otherwise? Oops.
Times are changing. Anyway, I love the game. I love Persona 5. I actually played it all the way through twice in a row.
Wow.
And that means I sunk 220 hours into that fucker, I think.
I don't remember.
Am I mistaken?
Aside from FF14, I think the last game I put that much time into was Tales of Vesperia, and God, that game rubbed me the wrong way every step of the way.
Or maybe it was only 120. I don't remember. It were many hours anyway. So now you're probably wondering, why am I even watching the show? Since, I'm pretty familiar with the story at this point. Well, the thing is, I'm just curious how well they will be able to adapt this giant-ass game story with its many main characters and into an anime series. For now, they seem to be doing a decent job. Cutting some corners here and there and speeding things up, slowing things down where it's necessary. But yeah, so this is my main interest, why I want to check this out. Also, in the game, the main character is silent and has no given name, so this, of course, had to change for the anime, and it was changed. Mm-hmm. He now actually forms whole sentences and has the name Ren Amamiya. And, of course, a different one in my time with the game, since I named him Tsubasa Yamino, because I'm the biggest piece of shit weep that ever weeped. Anyhow,
what the hell?
I'm also looking forward to seeing how they stage the big battles in that story and which characters are highlighted and everything. So if you don't want to sit through a long-ass RPG but want to experience a great story with a lot of cool characters, this might be up your alley as well, depending on how well the team behind the show pulls off this adaptation, which, I cannot yet speak to, because, only one episode in. It all depends on how well they develop the character interactions, because that's where the game takes a long time and shines. Like, lets you really spend time with those characters, get to know them, and then when their emotional moments come and the payoff at the end, it all really resonates because you spend so much time with the characters and got to know them very well. And I don't know if the anime can deliver that with 24 episodes, 26. I don't know how many I've planned. We'll see. We'll see what they do with it. But very much looking forward to seeing that story play out again, maybe with some alternative choices and routes and everything. So yeah, cool, Persona 5 the animation. Looking forward to it. What's next on your list?
Next up is Space Battleship Tiramisu.
Can't get over that name.
It's pretty good. So, the human race has extended its reach and its greed to the vast reaches of space. In Space Era 0156, a war breaks out amidst all the colonies. Earth begins to construct a new battleship called Tiramisu in secret. Just as the war begins, one genius pilot steers the Tiramisu as a beacon of hope for our humanity. He's an ace pilot named Subaru Ichinose, and he can't stand being around the other pilots, so his haven is the cockpit of his mech, and he just wants to live in his mech. He just wants to, chill in there and have
safe
his
haven.
In the first episode, we see him trying to eat his lunch inside the robot, and it gets all over the place, and it's a big disgusting mess, and it's stupid and it's dumb, but it's fun. This show has absolutely no reservations about how dumb it is, and all right, it got me with that. And I mean, the show is also one of those short format shows, so you can watch each episode in about 5 or 6 minutes. It is pretty much a popcorn show, but it's the trouble with shows like these is when it comes time to review, kind of like with something like TQ, it's hard to say a lot about it other than, yeah, it is what it is. But this will be a fun distraction, I think. I don't know if you ever plan on checking it out, but
I don't know. It's usually I'm more interested in the story heavy stuff, so
I mean, I don't actively search it out either, but when I see something as dumb as this, I'm sort of like, all right, what do you got?
It's well produced and well written and everything, so I mean, why not, right?
I mean, it's animated by our friends at Gonzo, so
doesn't have to necessarily be bad, so
that's true. That is true. I mean, Akiba's Trib didn't look terrible all the way through, so
yeah, judging from the first episode, it was pretty decent. Yeah.
Oh, what's next?
Next on my list, we're gonna have a World Cup this year, and of course that means there will be a new soccer anime as well. But this is actually a remake of probably the most popular soccer anime and sports anime in general out there, or at least one of them. It's Captain Tsubasa, a series that already had a remake in 2002, which I watched, as well as the first show from the 80s. I watched a lot of Captain Tsubasa in my life. So to get me to not only check out, but also stick with the story I've already watched in its entirety twice, because this is a remake by the numbers, it starts out the same as the other two shows. This new adaptation, of course, needed something special. And it does have that, kinda. It's produced by David Production, which means the actual animation is not necessarily great in itself, but where it gets interesting is the name of the director, and that is Toshiyuki Kato. And if you have been following our show for a while, that name might ring a bell, because he was a storyboard artist and episode director on the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series for the first 3 parts, and the series director for part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable.
Interesting.
And of course, I could be imagining things, but I'll be damned if this Captain Tsubasa remake doesn't have his handwriting all over it. the same dramatic music cues, the same powerfully staged still frames and showcase animation moments with, colorful backgrounds and everything, speed lines, the whole shebang. It really feels like Captain Tsubasa got hit by a truck full of JoJo's, and I love it. I hope the presentation stays that way for the rest of the show. I love my sports anime as crazy and over the top as they can be, and this series is promising exactly that. So yeah, I'm super on board for now. Only downside, none of the streaming sites seem to have licensed this, or at least not yet. So there are only fan subs for now, and sports anime have a tendency to lose their sub support quickly because they don't have the biggest fan base. But we'll see. Yeah, but if you like your sports anime, if you got a fondness for soccer stuff, maybe like I do, check out this one, because just in terms of its presentation, it's really, really good stuff. Yeah. And if you love JoJo's too, maybe check out at least the first episode and tell me, am I crazy? This feels like fucking JoJo spin-offs in parts. Anyway, yeah.
Is this a JoJo reference?
Might be. It's missing the big manga letters, like, the fucking go. But yeah, we'll see. I hope it stays the way it is, the presentation at least. Yeah, what's next on your list?
Gundam Build Divers. Because anytime there's a show that has the combinations of words Gundam and build in that order, I gotta be there. Mm-hmm. So, in the near future, Gunpla battles are held in a new massive multiplayer online game called Gundam Battle Nexus Online, where players immerse themselves in their Gunpla in a virtual world and battle other players around the globe. Another VR MMO? So, Riku Mikami, a 14-year-old student, looks to follow the footsteps of top Gunpla diver Kyoya Kujo with his Gundam 00 diver and his ragtag team. So,
on a scale from 1 to 10, how hyped were you for this show?
11. I mean, this show it hit all of the right notes in the first couple episodes, because it's like, hey, you like Gundam, right? Here you go, damn it. And I think there was a moment at the end of the first episode that sort of summed it up perfectly for me. Riku and his friend have sort of a tough time running against this other player who decides to take advantage of them. And then when they log out of the game, the person who runs the facility where they're playing is like, so did you two have a good time first time playing? And they turn around, stars in their eyes, and say, it was awesome. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much how I felt. The Gundam Build series it's fan service incarnate, but it's so much fun for what it is, because it knows exactly what people want to see. Oh, you want to remember everything that made Gundam great? Boom, we got you, fam. And they actually seem to be acknowledging Gundam age this time around, which is like, I thought was like an unspoken taboo, because apparently, Japan doesn't really like age all that well, but whatever. They came out swinging with the promo materials when they showed Kyoya piloting a variant of the Age 2, and it's like, oh, we're just doing this straight away. That's fine. That's cool.
I mean, if fan service is done well, it can be great. So I guess that's one of those cases.
Yes, definitely. So I love me some Gundam. So you bet your ass I'm going to be watching this show.
Great.
What's next?
Next on my list is Megalobox. This might be the sleeper hit of the season. I don't know. A lot of people are talking about it. So this is a spin-off from a popular boxing manga/anime called Ashita no Joe, or Tomorrow's Joe, from the 70s. I haven't seen the original, but this one, I think, is a keeper. It's basically about people fighting boxing matches with bionic enhancements on their arms, logically. The main character, called only Junk Dog at first, fights in shady underground battles to make ends meet, and even though he's really good, he has to throw most of his fights to make the bets play out the way his manager and his depth holders want them to. One day, he, by accident, runs into the champion of Megaloboxing, Yuri, and when they square off against each other after Junk Dog challenges him, Yuri so severely beats his ass that Junk Dog is now dedicated to fight in the coming giant tournament, Megalonia, I think it's called, to beat Yuri on his home turf. So yeah, like I said, I'm not familiar with Tomorrow's Joe, but I love Hajime no Ippo. So I had to check this one out as well. And while the first fight wasn't as fast and excitingly staged as most of the fights from Ippo, Megalobox looks so fucking gorgeous that is reason enough to stick with Joe. It has this nice, rough, dirty, hand-drawn look to it that's totally catering to my tastes. And the character designs are super distinctive and cool. And Yuri looks like he could be the villain in the Yoshiaki Kawajiri production, aka a face that begs to be punched. But yeah, this show just oozes style. The look, the animation, the music, everything. I hope the matches in the actual tournament will be a bit more exciting, but aside from that, I'm in. It's just the first two episodes were great and very promising, and I'm looking forward to see how Junk Dog, now only Joe, of course, in the fares in the tournament. Very excited.
Watch him actually take on the name Joe later on and everyone loses their mind.
No, he already did.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood.
Yeah, that's in the second episode, like where he has to choose a new alias for his identity in the tournament, and he just says Joe. And I assume, the Ashton Joe fans were squealing when they came to that scene in the episode. But
yeah. I had been hearing a lot about this show, and I hadn't checked it out, but maybe if I do end up dropping something else, I'll pick it up.
It's the other show by TMS this season.
Yes.
The other one being Lupin. So I wonder which show got the bigger budget. I can't tell yet. But yeah. So what's next on your list?
Next up is Golden Kamuy. So, in the early 20th century, Russo-Japanese war veteran Saichi Immortal Sugimoto scratches out a meager existence during the post-war gold rush on the wild frontier of Hokkaido. When he stumbles across a map to a fortune in hidden Ainu gold, he sets off on a treacherous quest to find it. Sugimoto is not the only interested party, and everyone who knows about the gold will kill to possess it. Faced with the harsh conditions of the northern wilderness, ruthless criminals, and rogue Japanese soldiers, Sugimoto will need all his skills and luck, and the help of an Ainu girl named Asiripa to survive. So, this show, I guess it had been sort of, it feels like it's the big show that a lot of people were really pushing this season. Kind of like how a few seasons back Black Clover was the one that was being pushed, and but I did some reading on this. I was like, this seems interesting. It seems cool, and from the first episode, it seems like it could be fun to watch.
It's a great setup, like pretty unusual setting and everything, and just the story hook is pretty awesome too. Like something you don't see every day.
Yeah, and I mean, the character designs look pretty good. I think they all look nice. But I think we need to address the elephant in the room.
Don't you mean the bear?
Yeah, and the wolf. Boy, oh boy, they came out swinging with the ugliest CG bear I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it looks like a very badly... controlled robotic bear with no fur movement whatsoever or any expression.
I sort of had to step away for a moment and say, when did I start watching Berserk?
Yeah, pretty much.
And I mean, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, real tight, that doesn't become a huge sticking point as the show goes on, because it seems like it could be a legitimately interesting show, and I want to see, and I want to keep watching it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I stuck through all of Berserk, despite its giant visual shortcomings. But then again, I am a giant fan of that franchise, so I don't know that much about Golden Kamuy. Like I said, the story setup is interesting enough, but if we get a fucking shitty CG bear or shitty CG wolf or other animals that look like crap in every episode that pull you immediately out of the action when you see them, which happened to me in the first episode. Mm-hmm. This is gonna be a bit hard to stick with, but I want to stick with it because I heard a lot of good things about the manga. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, for now, I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt and just hope that the wolf doesn't show up in every episode. Mm-hmm. Which is not a thing I normally say because I think wolves are awesome. God damn it.
Yeah. So, what you got next?
So the next one on my list is, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, it's a Full Metal Panic show. What is happening? I cannot believe I'm watching a Full Metal Panic anime in 2018. It's been 13 fucking years since the second season of that show.
Has it been 13?
13 since second raid. Yeah, and I revisited both the first season and the second raid before watching the first episode of this new season, Invisible Victory. And firstly, I'm glad to report that the old show still holds up. It's a good mix of comedy and action drama. Secondly, it's really good that I went back and checked out the first two seasons because Invisible Victory doesn't waste any time with recapping and picks up immediately where second raid left off. So if you don't know anything about the series and start here, you'll be completely lost. No chance. Like, who are these characters? What is going on? Mithril? What the fuck? So the first two seasons are a mandatory watch. Although you can skip the comedy spin-off, Full Metal Panic Fomofu, because it's just filler. Good filler. Incredibly funny filler. But still filler. So yeah, the evil organization Amalgam is done playing around with the good guys from Mithril and goes into all-out attack mode. So things are looking not too bright for Sosuke Sagara and Chidori Kaname, Teresa Testarossa, and all the other great cast members of the old series, who are all back, I think even all with their original voice actors, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I'm so happy this show is coming back and will maybe finally get a conclusion to the story, which has been long overdue. I'm gonna have a bit of whiplash because I went from a Gonzo show with season 1 to a KyoAni show with season 2, and now I'm watching a Zevek show, which is somewhere between those two in terms of quality. Of course, they switched to CG for the Max now, which is a bit of a downer, but at least it's fluid and not your usual choppy low FPS anime CG. But yeah, anyway, I love Full Metal Panic. I'm glad it's back. I can't believe it. Good times. So, what do you have next on list?
Next up is Food Wars, the third plate, the Totsuki Railway arc.
Yay!
Which obviously is a continuation of the third season from a couple seasons back. Or
which we skipped on reviewing because we knew this new or second part of that third season was coming. So
yeah, they announced it pretty much straight away. So that was because I think it was kind of sort of at first. Oh hey, the third series is going to be 24 episodes, and then news broke that it's going to be a split season. Sure. Mm-hmm. So the third plate sort of follows the continuing saga of how Erina's father has taken over Totsuki Academy and is using the Elite 10 to his ways and, just trying to teach everyone, you have to be a mindless drone and follow our directions. There is no uniqueness to your cooking. You will be a worker bee. And, of course, Soma and everyone else in the Polar Star Academy are like, nah, son, nah. So this is going to be the big counterattack season where Erina is sort of starting to – she doesn't want to be afraid of her father anymore, which is like awesome. It's nice to see that, she is more than a one-dimensional character.
Yeah, I'm glad they made her kind of the main character in this.
Yes. So, we went over how I sort of went into Food Wars at the begrudging a mutual friend of ours, and I finally got into it, and I was like, this show is really good. So I'm actually really excited to see where the story goes with this season.
Yeah, me too. Food Wars is great shonen, even though with a kind of different approach. So, yeah, I'm always up for that. And I love the first 2 seasons. I love the first part of the 3rd season. So, can't wait for more.
Definitely.
So,
what else you got?
I guess the final pick for both of our lists. And that is My Hero Academia Season 3, of course.
Yeah.
What else could it be?
What you thought we was going to skip on that show? You're wrong.
Yeah. I think nobody expected that. Like, literally nobody who was following the show was expecting us, of all people, to skip on My Hero Academia Season 3.
You know, I'm not so sure about 3rd season. I think I'm not going to watch it. Boy, what, you crazy?
Anyway, yeah, sure. This is of course, the continuation of the great shonen action series, My Hero Academia. And, from the eventful 2nd season, we're continuing right off where, basically where the cliffhanger left us. The League of Villains is being reformed. Basically, a lot of new members are joining, and our poor students of UA Academy have no idea what's coming for them. Especially in the first episode, because that was sadly mostly recap. I mean, we have some fun swimming pool shenanigans, but yeah. Aside from that, the first episode was recap, but the 2nd episode gets the story moving again. And we now have, the students now have the challenges of the training camp to deal with, but the OP promises big things on the horizon. So, This is gonna be awesome. No doubt about it. It will probably be my most anticipated anime each week this season. I don't know about you.
I mean, ever since, the end of season 2 with to be continued in season 3, from that moment, I was just sort of like, ah! So, I mean, I'm sure this is going to be, obviously it's going to be a show I'll hotly look forward to each week, but this season has some other really good stuff, so.
That's true.
There are other shows that I am equally excited for.
But I'm a sucker for good shonen action, and this is probably the best classic shonen action show in recent years, since the new Hunter x Hunter series, probably at least. So, yeah, if you haven't checked out My Hero Academia yet, please do. The first season is good, the 2nd season is fantastic, and I've heard the story arc they will adapt for this 3rd season is many people's favorite from the manga so far. So, yeah, I'm hype as fuck. I don't know about the rest of you, but definitely looking forward to more My Hero Academia. Definitely. And with that, we're done with the sneak peek, and we're gonna head in our first review from winter season 2018. Chise Hattori did have a bad life. So bad, in fact, that she doesn't care what happens to her anymore and decides to sell herself into slavery at an auction for the occult. Surprisingly, she is immediately picked up for a huge sum by the mage Elias Ainsworth, an ancient creature that masks himself as a human, but whose true appearance is of much more beastly nature. He brings Chise to his cottage on the British countryside on the outskirts of London, providing her with shelter, food, and a place she can call home, which she never expected to ever have again. But Elias' motives are not entirely altruistic, because Chise is special. She's a slave baggy or slave beggar, depending on how you pronounce it, a race of ancient fairy folk with a short lifespan that is able to endlessly generate magic. Thus, Elias decides that Chise is the perfect candidate to not only become his apprentice, but also his bride. Together, they go on a journey where Elias must learn what it means to be human, and Chise what it means to really live. But the road to their happy ending is littered with magical creatures, darkness, and danger, with Elias maybe being the most dangerous obstacle of them all. So, based on a manga by Koro Yamazaki, this is a fantasy story.
Very much so.
Fantasy story. Yes. And also romance. Also dark shonen-y stuff, maybe. And Koro Yamazaki has done this and Frau Faust. Okay.
Yeah, apparently it's about if Faust were a woman or something like that. I did a little bit of reading on it, but not just like very surface level stuff. So
Yeah, sounds interesting enough. I haven't checked it out, but the Ancient Magus Bride manga is still running. 9 volumes currently, I think. So I don't know how much the anime series covers of that. Haven't read up on that. But we got 24 episodes of a series out of the current material anyway. This series is produced by Wit Studio, the company behind Attack on Titan, Seraph of the End, and Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress, among other things. And apparently also soon responsible for the anime adaptation of the manga Vinland Saga, which I only just found out about and I'm super excited about.
Really?
Yes, I read that manga and I enjoyed it very much. And then I was like, man, I don't want to follow this on a chapter-to-chapter basis, and I think this is going to make a really good anime, so I'm just going to stop reading it and wait for an anime adaptation. And that was a long time ago. And now they're finally apparently preparing an anime adaptation, and I am super hyped for that. I can't wait. And I'm glad that Wit is doing it. It might be really cool then. So yeah, there's that. And there was also an OVA of Ancient Magus Bride before the TV series, if I'm not mistaken. I still haven't checked that one out.
Yeah, it's like a 3-part prequel sort of story.
You've watched it, right?
Yes.
Is it a substantial viewing, or does the series cover that material too eventually?
The series does not cover it, but I don't... Not being familiar with the original manga, I don't know how essential it really is, to be perfectly honest. So.
I heard there's some more stuff about Chisa's childhood in there.
A little bit, but
I wonder how much that takes away from, the eventual reveal in the series and everything. So, yeah, I don't know. You said it is prequel-y, but also takes part during the course of the series, kinda. So I don't know quite what to make of it. And I haven't seen it yet. So would you recommend checking out the OVA before watching the series, or would you say watch it after the series?
I feel like it helps set the precedent for the show. So
okay. Well, I really still need to check it out. But I've watched the series twice now, weirdly enough, but not the OVA. Weird. Anyway. So, in terms of presentation, Studio Wit did a fantastic job on Ancient Magus Bride. It's a beautiful show with beautifully crafted, rich fantasy world that oozes personality and atmosphere from every frame. There are so many details stuffed into the most minor of scenes, and the backdrops are so gorgeous, it's ridiculous. The animation is great too. I mean, there are not that many big action scenes or anything in the show, and when there are, that's probably when the budget limitations surface the most. But it always manages to make its big moments look important and impressive, in my opinion. What did you think about the overall animation quality and design of the show?
I mean, I agree on that. I think... I don't know how true this is or not, but I feel like they were probably able to save on budget, mostly because both of the intro sequences are just clip show intros. Yeah. I
like the first one better just by the virtue of it having, in my opinion, the better song.
Yeah, I mean, I like that, we got a couple of Macross alums on both intros, so, I mean, there is that. But, I feel like the song in the first intro is stronger, but I don't know, I like them both.
I like when the song, the first song is eventually played in the course of the series during a special event. It's good use of that song. makes it feel very emotional in that specific scene. Anyway, the director of this show is Noihiro Naganuma, whose biggest work before this seems to be directing the Yowamushi Pedal movie. Weird enough.
Yeah, that's what I turned up too.
I watched that movie and I liked it, but yeah. He also worked as an animation director on Welcome to the NHK and a key animator on Death Note, Guns, and Seire no Moribito, among other things. So, yeah, got some work under his belt. I also want to highlight the music. I mean, we already did a bit by talking about the openings, but Junichi Matsumoto scored the soundtrack for this, and he, weirdly enough, seems to have done anything but music in his anime career so far.
Yeah, I usually, when I can't find much on Anime News Network, I'll cross-reference a name on VGMDB.
Yeah.
And this was his only credit on there as well. So
yeah.
He was listed as screenplay on Ergo Proxy, second key animation on an episode of Fairy Tail, and then literature production for Samurai Champloo.
Yeah, it's really weird. That is a weird compilation of credits. Yeah, but the soundtrack in this is amazing. It's great. Both the somber and exciting moments get their appropriate emphasis through the corresponding music. I thought it enhanced the atmosphere and especially the heavy emotional story parts really well. Just, an overall great atmospheric soundtracks with some highlights here and there. There's some repetition. There's one specific theme, which you could say is Cheese's theme. Or, Cheese and Elias has played over and over again in certain moments. But it wasn't getting old for me. Like, I always appreciated the music, and I thought it was very well used.
I mean, the thing with music is, we talk about it as much as we can, but it's situational. You can't just be like, slap any old song in the scene and it'll be good. No, that's what we call 4Kids. That's what they used to do, and it was bad. You have to, more carefully pick your songs so your scenes have a little bit of gravitas. And, the show did that very well, so.
Definitely. Well, let's talk about the story then and the characters. Now, on the surface, just from the setup summary alone, Ancient Magus Bride sounds a bit like a Beauty and the Beast rip-off, but I think that impression couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, among a lot of other story points, we have a developing romance between Chise and Elias, but the tone is completely different than in a Disney movie or something like that. Both characters start at completely different places than that. Chise is damaged goods with a lot of emotional baggage. She has had a really tough life and needs to actually discover that her existence is worth something and is not only cherished by other people, but should also be appreciated by herself. And the series most of the time doesn't rush that development, thankfully. It takes a lot of small steps for Chise to find something to live for and not only live for others. I thought her path was written and structured and paced rather well.
I mean, I sort of felt that parts of the plot just kind of felt like it was meandering a bit, though. I'd be hard-pressed to really, now that it's been several weeks and, watching a show over the course of, 6 months, to pick out a really good spot where I felt that way, but...
Probably every time they, galvanized through the magical landscape or went to the fairy folk realm or something.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point.
But I thought, what you said, meandering, I thought at some points the meandering was as it actually had a positive effect. And I will talk about that later again because, there's some counterpoint to that.
I mean,
first,
it's fantastic for world building.
Yes. And the world building in the show, in general, is excellent. But let's talk about the other main character first, which is Elias, or Elias. I don't know, the show, in the show he's pronounced Elias. So I'm calling him that.
I mean, I was just operating under the assumption that it was Elias, and they were saying Elias because, that's just how Japanese people would pronounce. I mean, although... Counterpoint, you could write it and pronounce it in Japanese as Elias, but whatever, that's neither here nor there. But
yeah, I mean, sounds like they're pronouncing Ainsworth, right? So
yeah.
Anyway, so Elias on the other hand is super interesting because he's not that typical rough guy with a heart of gold that is destined to eventually transform into the perfect prince. He's not human, and he doesn't know how to be human. He kind of understands why people do what they do and what they think, but he cannot empathize at all. So every time he feels something, he is like a kid stumbling over a new sensation, and he can't, most of the time, even properly verbalize or process what he's experiencing. So Chise is very integral in helping him to understand what it means to be human, and that gets her into dangerous water more than once, because Elias is not always in control of his impulses, especially if he doesn't understand them. And I thought that was very interesting. It was a very interesting dynamic between the two, especially later towards the series, because it feels like in the beginning, you got this pretty clear power structure where Elias is, the caregiver, the strong kind of, boyfriend/father figure, maybe, a cross between that, the guy who pulls Chise out of the rut and gives her a reason to live, kind of. But that dynamic shifts ever so slowly, and eventually Chise also becomes much more power over him and is much more important in his life. And, this dynamic switches back and forth again and again in specific situations. And that was one of the most interesting things about the show, in my opinion. And what, how that relationship developed in that way.
I feel like them sort of trying to learn how to live with each other and trying to sort of feel each other out made very interesting dynamic between the two characters. And I think you hit on it right when you say Elias. He is like a kid, because he doesn't know how to conduct himself in a lot of situations, and that makes him, it makes him interesting, because you have this presumably fully grown magical being,
and he acts like a normal, adult person in every other way, except when it comes, to certain emotional things and understanding how, certain emotional parts of human behavior work and everything. So, there is that aspect to him. There is the grown-up aspect of him. He knows what he has to do to live a grown-up life, and he thinks he knows how to act as a grown-up, but certain things he just can't understand, he can't process, he can't empathize. That was super interesting. So that setup alone would be interesting enough, and the developing relationship and the shifting balance of dependence between the two main characters is definitely the focus of the show. But then we also get this amazing fantasy world those two inhabit, at least, partially. It's always like in this Twilight Zone, you always have, magical things stumbling into the real world, and then sometimes those two venturing into the world of the fairy folk, and there's also like, they're always walking the line between reality and, fantastical things surrounding them. I like that stuff. That's also, like, I think I mentioned that already in our review of Flying Witch. It's like every time a show does this, like, okay, this is kind of set in reality, but there's always the hint of something magical behind the curtain at every corner, that could spring out and grab you, or that hides a deeper truth or something like that. Always like that kind of atmosphere, that kind of setup. I like that in Flying Witch. I like that in Stephen King novels. That's what he uses for a lot of his horror stories. This uncanny feeling that there's something more to this world. And I think Ancient Magus Bride does that too.
Yeah, it manifests that sort of thing very well.
So yeah, you got this. You got the real world. You got this amazing fantasy world, and a lot of creatures coming over from that, and people who know about this and work with this. And it takes a lot of different bits and pieces from different myths and religions and weaves them into this gorgeous tapestry that just wraps itself around you while you're watching the show. And Ancient Magus Bride has a big cast, and a lot of that cast is made up of magical creatures with amazing designs and cool personalities, some of them with their own cool backstories. A lot of them you've probably heard of before, either in, stories from Shakespeare, for example, or, when you had some literature or history courses in school and something like that. So the show is like plastered with that. There's so many creatures you have probably heard about at some point, and it just feels very rich and like this deep, endless well of fantasy stuff that you can only see the surface of, and I like that a lot. And man, there are a lot of cute fantasy animals in the show. that weird lizard thing in the beginning that just crawls onto Jesus' shoulders and her lap. That's adorable. And those flying weird sheep thingies. But yeah, if you love high fantasy stuff, this show will be a feast for you. The world building is just excellent and intriguing. Yeah. Going back to one of the central themes of the show, which is the different forms relationships can take, that it extends to a lot of the side characters as well. And the series always manages to connect that in a fitting way to Jesus and Elia's story. We got the comparable teacher-student relationship between Renfred and Alice. We have sibling relationships of Stella and her brother, or between Ruth and Chise. Ruth, by the way, probably my favorite character in the show. Giant black dog that talks. Where can I get one? I mean, I haven't made him my fucking Twitter avatar for nothing. I love his dynamic with Chise. I think their brother-sister relationship is much more healthy and loving and relatable and not weird than a lot of other anime series.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I hope it stays that way. It really feels like, he's this weirdly adopted big brother to her with no deeper motives or anything. And he just watches over her and cares for her, but that's it. And he's also a giant black dog. So it's great. I love it. We also got Angelica with her husband and daughter. We got the oddworldly relationships of the fairy folk, who have like this different understanding of just, of love, of relationships, of family, just because, they live much longer lives or eternal lives in some cases. And it's just interesting to see these different interpretations and ideas of how relationships do manifest and can manifest and could manifest in a fantasy setting. And it's cool stuff. It's interesting to see these different people with different connections all work as a part of the bigger story and contribute a small piece to Jesus and Elia's growth as well.
I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say I got a little lost in the wide breadth of this show's cast.
Oh yeah, that's easy.
And I feel like there's parts of it that I would have appreciated more. Like, obviously knew some of the myths and stuff that they were going for, but there were other ones that I just I wasn't as familiar with, or I just had no idea about. So, like, there's certain things that I feel like you need to have a better understanding of, like some of the more Celtic stuff. And
the Norse mythology stuff that is in there is like, okay, I think I know what this is about, or, this I could have sworn I heard something about this, but then there's one scene where there's like a fucking centaur just carrying a pregnant woman on his back and is riding through the snow. It's like, okay, what is that? Who is that supposed to be? I don't know. The horned god. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I've heard that phrase before, but I know nothing about it. So,
like, going back to Ruth. Ruth is, a black dog, and the black dog comes from like Celtic and Germanic mythology about like this demonic entity that takes on the appearance of, well, a black dog. So that wasn't something that I was immediately familiar with, so I had to do a little bit of reading on that.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those shows you can appreciate it without knowing, the fantasy stuff, or at least without knowing all of it.
I feel like it would enhance the experience, though.
It enhances it greatly, I assume. If you're already a fantasy nut, if you're already a myth and, mythology buff, you will probably get a lot more out of this show.
Mm.
And, I wonder. I rarely go out and read up on certain stuff as a background for shows, and But I still might do that, at least for some things. And I wonder how much stuff is in there that's, actually true to the legends and everything, or pretty close to them. I can't say. But I've heard a lot about a lot of the characters that they were showing or featuring prominently in the show, and not just, as a small... I had more trouble with the characters that they were just showing as a small side scene. It's like, hey, this is the blah, blah, blah. And it's like, who? Okay, sure. Why not?
There were some like, Oberon and Titania. Okay,
yeah,
I know that.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Yes, everyone heard of those two,
and
right?
There's I forget how early they introduced a certain antagonist, and I don't want to name names for fear of people being like, spoilers, but I didn't quite understand the history behind it until I went and looked up, and I was like, oh, okay.
Well, let's talk about, we're talking about the main villain, right? Let's talk about him for a bit, since he's interesting. But yeah, you're right. We don't really learn much about his origin. It's mentioned in passing in one sentence, I think, what his actual origin is.
Yeah.
And by some dude in a fucking bar that he's in. And like, wait, did I mishear that? It's like one guy just saying, I remember that guy. Who wasn't he in that did that and that and that and that story? And I was like, what? Oh, that's who he is? Okay. Thanks for giving me that information on the side. But yeah, I mean, you don't really need to know his full origin to get what his character is about. You learn enough pretty much at the end of the series to understand what his deal is. But I think the most interesting stuff about him is how his path through life and his experiences and his opinion on that and how he deals with that is connected to Chise's upbringing and story, life story and everything. On a thematic level, they are kind of connected. Their experiences are. And yeah, his origin is kind of out there. But, once you kind of learn about where he's coming from and what happens while he's completely repulsive, but after you learn that stuff, it's easier to empathize because the story is like this kind of good mirror piece to that of our female main protagonist. And I appreciated that. I thought I was like, oh, okay, this is how this fits together. This is why he's in that show. This is why he is the main antagonist of this first outing of this first season. And yeah, that works. That fits very much. He's not that heavily featured in the entire story. Like he takes up his story. I mean, he's pulling the strings, always pulling the strings in the background. But he's only heavily featured in like 5 episodes.
Ish,
yeah, 5 or 6. But yeah, he's still important. And like I said, his story is a good complementary piece to Chise's story and how she develops and what her conclusion is when she reaches a certain point in her development and how that relates to what the feelings and thoughts of the villains are towards her, towards his life and everything. So yeah, it's cool stuff. It's just interesting. Now, the only thing that was not handled as well in the show, and you've alluded to that earlier, though I want to talk about a slightly different part of that, is the pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Because in some parts, especially the end, for me, the show felt really rushed. You had problems with it meandering at certain points. I felt at the ending, things went too fast.
Yeah, I could see where you get that feeling, to be honest.
I mean, already in the beginning, you have some weird scene transitions where stuff seems like it's happened too fast, where, in the beginning, I'm not spoiling much because it happens like in the 2nd episode or something. Elias is like, we're going to go on our honeymoon. And suddenly they're in Iceland. And suddenly Chise gets, whisked away by a dragon. And I'm like, what? Did we miss fucking episode or half an episode between this? How did they get... What is happening? And that happened several times in this show But you can mark stuff like that down, like as the show trying to build a weird and otherworldly atmosphere that, is kind of magical, like you're on kind of magic carpet ride or something, and that it doesn't necessarily have to follow linear storytelling all the time. And they're like, okay, this is time skip, this is happening now, and this is happening now, and it feels all a bit like you're peeking through a hole and not seeing, the whole story the entire time. Mm-hmm. And I just had to get used to that in the beginning, and it gets better later on, in my opinion, at least in the middle part. But there are moments in the show, like I said, especially around the finale, that could have used some time to breathe and sit there for an episode or two, instead of being brought up and wrapped up in a few scenes, which is weird, since in many cases the show is really good at doing just that. Maybe some of those scenes you felt were meandering. I don't know if we were talking about the same things, but especially when it came to, the different phases of Jesus and Ilya's relationship. I felt like some parts, where they talk to each other about, just what they are thinking right now and why they acted the way they did in an episode before. When they just sit down and, no, we have to talk this out because neither of us are really sure how they feel, and we need to solve this in a conversation and get, to some form of consensus with this. And I thought those scenes were done really well, and they were given the appropriate amount of time they needed to have the desired effect and, to give the desired emotional response, that was necessary. And I felt like at the end, some of the important stuff just went by too fast. It feels like they wanted to wrap up the season with a specific story arc, like ending at a certain point. Mm-hmm. And I get why they did want to do that. Like I said, it relates to the villain and his story and how that wraps up and everything. And I'm pretty sure they were, adamant about finishing this season with that specific story and that specific endpoint. And to get there within the 24 episodes, they were forced to cut some corners, which is a shame. I'm pretty sure the series would have worked even better if it ran for 3 seasons length, 36 episodes. I know that's pretty unusual for anime.
How often does that really happen? I feel like Diamond is Unbreakable was a severe outlier in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. But I really feel like there were some episodes in this, especially, you have like this big reveal that is hinted at many times about Jesus' childhood and what happened to her and what, scarred her so deeply on an emotional level. And I feel like that origin story, that background story, should have been longer than it was. It should have been given more time, at least one more episode, because some of the developments in those scenes and in that background story feel like not necessarily that they were coming out of nowhere, but they were not given the appropriate time that was necessary to make that scene hit as hard as it needed to be and to be as understandable and relatable as it should have been. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you felt the same way or if you were pretty happy with the way things wrapped up in that regard.
No, I mean, I do agree with you on that. This show kind of had, you're right, had some weird sort of pacing issues throughout, not like all throughout, but at varying points. So it's just sort of hard to pin down exactly what could have been done different or better, I mean, at least it's not like I'm going to go back a little bit to Chaika, where that show just sort of, it didn't really sort of just end, but it was like, hey, you think you could put another episode in there because you sort of got to the end point real quick, guys.
Yeah, in Chaika it really felt like it came out of nowhere. In Ancient Magus Bride, you still have you have a very good build up.
Yeah,
this all feels like it was going the logical way, like it was supposed to. It just felt that some parts of that final chapter felt like, maybe should have taken a bit more time to let the important moments breathe a bit. And yeah.
Now, when you have so much budget and you're allotted so many episodes, you gotta make do.
Yeah, I mean, that those those are the difficulties when properly adapting stuff from a different source material. But yeah, those are just nitpicks. Overall, Ancient Magus Bride is a fantastic show in every sense of the word. Great personal, emotional story, great characters, great look, great music, an all-around must-watch package in my opinion. The manga is still running, like I said, so I'm sure we'll get a second season eventually. And I personally can't wait to meet Chise and Elias again and see how their relationship develops further, and also dive back into that rich fantasy world the show so excellently crafted. 2 thumbs up. Please go and watch it. And that is a wrap on the 49th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to vrt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for some interesting articles linked in our episode release posts. Follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze. We tweet regular updates and fun anime-related stuff there. Leave us comments and questions on Facebook and our YouTube channel, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next show. Macht's gut.
See you next time, everybody.
Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
Un programme chaotique avec intrigue profonde et animation unique.
Also, in a beastly battle royale, the one with the sharpest fangs always wins.
And when you need to save your family, how long will you be able to maintain your sanity in the frozen time?